Or we want to start with that breaking news. President-elect Donald Trump's sentencing for his May criminal conviction has once again been delayed. Now, this is the third time sentencing has been pushed back since Donald Trump was found guilty for his role in a cover-up of a hush money payment. CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi joining us now for more on this. What do you make of this decision by this judge, Caroline? This is the third time they made this decision to delay it.
That's right, Liz. I think we all sort of saw the writing on the wall. It's just now that we know definitively that the sentence will be adjourned. What's happening now is really what both parties had agreed to. Remember, we heard from Alvin Bragg's office last week, really previewing that the Trump team was wanting to put forward this motion to dismiss, acknowledging that there are serious considerations to take into account now that Trump is president-elect, while also balancing this idea that he has been convicted of 34 felony counts. They noted that they would oppose this motion to dismiss, but that they were willing to put the sentencing on hold for the interest of justice. We got a lot more ahead before we can get to sentencing. Two motions. One, the Judge Merchan will need to decide on this. The most recent motion to dismiss, the Trump team has until December 2nd to file that. Alvin Bragg's office will respond by December 9th. And then we have Merchan needing to decide the Supreme Court immunity issue that Trump's team put forth, saying this entire thing needs to be tossed out. So we have to get those two issues off the table before we can even think about going to sentencing.
How does the judge's decision today to delay this indefinitely, does that impact Trump's other legal cases?
No, not at all. Look, the issue in the motion to dismiss here has to do with constitutional principles having to do with separation of powers and issues in the Constitution, really an idea of sort of a unitary executive that the president, and they're saying the president-elect now, should not have to face criminal prosecution while in office or in this pre-election period. Now, that's the issue that Jack Smith in the federal cases is grappling with right now, and why, in fact, he's winding down those federal cases. They're going to go away, basically, because we do have these principles that the Office of Legal Counsel has said a sitting president can't be prosecuted federally. And then that Georgia case has been sort of, in the background there for a while. The appeals court in Georgia just took that calendar date off the schedule. There are issues with that prosecution as well. So we're seeing really all of these prosecutions floundering.
Donald Trump takes the oath of office on January 20th. How likely do you think that this particular case is going to get thrown out?
Oh, thrown out, that I don't know. There are a lot of issues, and trust me, Trump will appeal these issues until the end. He's not going to sort of take this lightly. He has another appellate issue wanting to remove this case to federal court. I suspect he would not want to move forward with any sentencing. He will make many arguments to say why they shouldn't move forward with sentencing prior to the election. To him being sworn in. It could take place prior, and then they could hold it in abeyance essentially throughout those 4 years for him to serve it thereafter. But there are issues with that as well. So I think, we're likely to see a lot more litigation about this case play out prior to January 20th.
Does anything change once President-elect Trump officially becomes president? I mean, I think a lot of people are curious. Is it possible he could pardon himself? Is that even possible with this case?
It's not possible for this case. It is possible for the federal cases, but that won't be necessary because we know that Jack Smith is winding those down. Likely he will want to have those dismissed without prejudice prior to Trump taking office. But no, he cannot pardon himself for state prosecutions, meaning this state crime, as well as the Georgia case.
All right, CBS News contributor Caroline Polisi. Thank you so much, Caroline, for joining us on that. All right, CBS News politics reporter Jake Rosen joins us. He's back for more on this. Jake, in the past hour since we last spoke, have you heard any kind of response from the Trump team on this case?
No, we haven't. And the campaign took a victory lap on this earlier this week when there were some initial filings on this decision before Judge Merchan made this decision today. They claimed complete victory over this and claimed that it again was a witch hunt case that Donald Trump should have never been charged for. And again, this really fits with the MO that we've seen with all the cases that you were just discussing in Georgia and the 2 federal cases, one of which has been fully dismissed, as we know. The Trump campaign really saw all of these as a weaponized system of justice that really the appointment of Matt Gaetz stemmed from, to appoint someone who would go in to make sure that these prosecutions of Donald Trump going forward just don't happen, and to not appoint someone who Trump couldn't rely upon or be a loyal foot soldier for, and of which Pam Bondi, who was appointed last night, potentially could be one of those people. She was with Donald Trump in the courtroom in New York City during this trial, speaking out on media interviews about that trial, and has really been alongside him for the last better part of a year on some of these legal issues.
And Jake, I want to switch gears for just a second, but same, but not really. Some breaking news on Matt Gaetz as well. What can you tell us about the future of Trump's former attorney general pick?
Right, so we know that Matt Gaetz officially resigned from the 118th Congress, which ends in January. Now, he just told Charlie Kirk, conservative influencer and activist who is down here in West Palm Beach, Florida right now, that he has no intention of joining the 119th Congress, which starts after members are sworn in early next year, and that he's going to continue to keep fighting for Donald Trump, and that he has no intention, again, of keeping that office. Now, potentially, should he change his mind because he won his election a couple of weeks ago, he could still take that seat. He did win an election in the 119th Congress, although he just told his friend and an ally of Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, who's been spotted at Mar-a-Lago over the last couple of days and weeks in transition efforts, that he has no intention of joining the 119th Congress and continuing as a Congress member.
All right, let's get to some other news on the former Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who was tapped to replace Matt Gaetz. What do we know about her relationship with the Trump team?
Well, we know that she was someone who defended Donald Trump during the first impeachment inquiry over Ukraine in 2019. She's someone who was tough on crime and immigration, as Donald Trump said in his appointment message yesterday on social media and was sent to reporters, and someone who really has been in Donald Trump's legal corner, although not really as outspoken as a lot of these other legal voices. She wasn't on television all the time, although she would defend Donald Trump when it came time to it, especially around that Manhattan case, and she helped the Republican National Committee in the late stages of the summer and fall around their election integrity efforts, which we know they kind of pivoted from election denial to election integrity, suing states and localities ahead of time to basically get ahead of what they saw as issues going into November's election. She was a part of that and did a kind of a regional tour as well. So she's been really aligned with Donald Trump on a number of his key issues in the last couple of weeks and months.
All right, Jake Rosen, thanks so much.